Hi, everyone. I'm Valerie Eichler Lairs, your host for this week's IDG Chit Chat Live. And this chat is all about it's summer. Tips and tricks for getting ready to do on-site research. Since it's summertime, we need to get out and about and do research in whatever location your ancestors were located at, or even to meet new relatives that you have not seen before. So with me tonight is our executive director, Terri O'Connell. Hi, Terri.
Hey, Val, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Wonderful.
And we have the archive lady, Melissa Barker. Hello, Melissa.
Hello. Hello.
And then we have a dog in the background. That must be Zoe. Hi, Zoe. She's got a few tips too.
Yes.
And then we have one of our going in-depth digital magazine writers, Christine Woodcock. Hi, Chris.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And finally, we have Cheryl Hudson Passey, one of our other going in-depth magazine writers from Myrtle Beach. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Good to have you here. I'm so glad that it's finally summer, that we can get out and about. And so we're going to share a few of our tips. I'm going to go last because I don't want to get everybody laughing. So Terri, let's start with you and give us some tips that you have for on-site research.
Well, I'm going to veer away from on-site research and just talk about heritage travel in general. And my tip is this. Though every trip you plan may not be a heritage trip, it can be. We are taking a road trip for some family purposes, and within that trip, we are going to Philly so that I can go to Valley Forge, go to Washington across the Delaware, and go to, there's one other place, can't think of it right now, Battle of Brandywine, because I just found a Revolutionary War soldier who was in all of those places. So we're going to go walk kind of his steps. So look at where you're going if you're taking a road trip and see if there are any places close that you might be able to spend a day, a couple days doing those kind of things. We're doing other fun things in those places too, because, you know, the family's with and they don't all care to walk in these steps that I do. But, you know, I'm going to get some good genealogy time out of it too, even if it's not doing research.
Great. Well, since you're not going to do research for your guy, my Jacob Lair was that Brandywine. So can you look him up?
Yeah. Was he in the Pennsylvania Regiment?
Yes, ma'am.
So in 12?
Oh, gosh.
Pennsylvania 12, which folded into Pennsylvania 3.
I just happen to have it right here. Look at that. I'm ready. He was prepared. He was in Pennsylvania 11th, which dispersed into 10th.
Okay. So you'll enjoy seeing those pictures too.
I will. I will. Awesome. Well, that's good to know. That's really good information when you're doing a heritage trip, not necessarily just to do research, but to walk in their footsteps.
That's my favorite thing. I mean, last year we took time to go walk the homestead of one of our Revolutionary War soldiers, who was the one that we entered the DAR through. So that was really cool to be able to walk. There's still living descendants on the land. Always very great to connect, you know, and talk to those cousins and hear how many people come through and are stopping and saying, you know, wanting to see the land because they know. It's a very big family, you know, 10 kids, 12 kids.
Well, and it's what kind of what they've talked about this last season on Who Do You Think You Are? Let's see. Great. I'll send you that information about Jacob.
Cool.
Super. Okay, and Sherry, can you give us some of your favorite tips and tricks before you go on a research trip or a heritage trip?
Well, sure. Especially summer trips. The kids are out of school. Take advantage of them being out of school. Take them with you. Let them help you plan the trip. They can look into what time things are open, what time they close, what they have. Get them involved. Help them find places to go for a heritage trip. Let them do some research. We are taking a family trip next week, and all the kids are going. There's a whole different bunch of kids that are going along with our family, and they've each been given a topic to research. So as we get there, they can talk to us about the Capitol building. They can talk to us about the towns that we're going to. So get them involved. Let them be part of the trip, and slowly start getting them involved and bring them in and get them addicted so we can get this next generation going. Another thing that I wanted to mention was when you're at your place of research, wherever it may be, an archive, don't just sit in your little cubicle and don't talk to anybody. You would be amazed if you would network with the people there, that you're going to find connections. You're going to find people researching the same areas that may know things that you don't know. I've run into cousins that I didn't know about in research trips. I was at a cemetery and went over to talk to a guy that was standing there looking at my grandfather's headstone and said, "Oh, do you know anything about the Roberts family?" It was my grandfather's cousin.
Nice.
I've never met the man before. My grandfather died in World War II. I didn't know much about my grandfather. My mom was 3 when he died. He was able to tell me some fun stories about growing up with my grandfather. So talk to people when you're out. I think that's probably my number one tip for any research is talk to people, network, see what people know, talk to the archivists, talk to the people that are working in historical societies, because they're going to know things about the area that you don't know. So get out there and talk to people. That's my tip. And take your kids. let them ask the questions too.
I can't tell you how many vacations that we took my son, and he didn't know it was going to end up being a genealogy trip until about the second time or third time. It's like, oh.
Real quick, I've got a friend that does heritage type trips every summer, and she brings nieces and nephews and aunts and uncles and whoever wants to go, and they have an itinerary, and then her son does t-shirts, and it looks like a band t-shirt, a tour, and it has all
that's cool.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's so fun, and the kids look forward to it every year. So try that too. See if that'd get them encouraged to go. They get a t-shirt.
Hey, Sherry, I just want to know if you're giving your kids some school credit for that.
Oh, I wish I could. If I was homeschooling them, I could.
Oh, you don't? I thought for some reason I thought you did homeschool.
I'm not crazy. No. Well, a little.
I was going to add to that is take either your business card or your contact card, so that when you're talking to these people, networking and introducing yourself, you have something to give to them, as if they don't have something to write down with or something like that. So I even leave a few. They're weatherproof right on the tombstones.
I was going to say that I have done the same.
Great. Well, thank you, Sherry. Okay, Melissa, tell us about some tips and tricks for on-site research or heritage trips.
Well, I'm going to give you some tips from an archivist point of view, because that's what I do, and I see all you little genealogists come in, and I love to see you coming in. First, before you leave the house, make sure you have a to-do list, so that when you show up, when you're overwhelmed by the facility, you still have your to-do list you can look at. When you get to the facility, and especially smaller archives, libraries, historical societies, make sure you sign the guest book or the sign-in sheet, because a lot of times in that sign-in sheet, it'll ask what surnames you're researching. And if other researchers come along behind you, they may look at people who have signed in and see your name and who you're researching. And if they connect with you, they can contact you. So leave the contact information for that. And the record source that I would like to tell everyone to please put on your to-do list and to don't forget to check out our manuscript collections, also called special collections. These records, I think, are some of the most underused record collections that genealogists don't seek out, because they're not sitting right in front of you in the research room. They're usually in back rooms. And like Sherry said, talk to the archivist. Most of us love to talk to genealogists. We want to help. We're there to help. And so I hope those tips help you.
That's awesome. I can't imagine going someplace and not talking.
We know.
Go figure. But yeah, definitely. And that's helped me because when I've gone over to the local Historical Society Museum, which is an archives, I'll look at the sign-in sheet to see who's come there to do research. And they have only a small space to list 1 or 2 surnames. And I've been able to reach out to them, their cousins.
I think another important thing is like historical societies. Not all of them have a place. Some of them are just people that are collecting. So reach out to them before you go and make time to meet them for coffee or something so you can talk about your family and maybe get your hands on some very cool old things that your ancestors might have signed. I got some cool election stuff in West Virginia last year doing that.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Chris, please share some tips and tricks with us.
So I always encourage people to do a research plan and to write down what it is they're looking for, what questions they want to have answered, and then what record sets they need to look at in order to be able to answer the questions that they still have. I also encourage everybody to contact the archive or library or historical society ahead of time. And tell them what it is you're looking for, and lo and behold, generally by the time you get there, it's there. And sometimes you're you can be really amazed because you didn't know that was even part of their collection, but they knew it. And so and it may have been in the basement, it may have been off site, it may have been part of the manuscript collection, and they went and they got that because they knew that it was going to be important to you. So I always encourage people to do that. And the other thing that I always do is I always take time to go to the social history museums. So I went recently. Well, actually, we were counting it up because I was in Scotland for a month. My kids were there for 2 weeks of that, and my son and I were counting up. And while the kids were there for 2 weeks, we did 8 museums. And didn't even realize, really. I mean, we went to the Fisheries Museum because we wanted to learn about what it was like when you were a fisherman. And we actually found by accident a Cold War bunker. And just so when you add them all up, they didn't feel like they were just days out, right? But the records that they have are incredible. And I always say to whoever's there, my interest is, and you'd be amazed that they'll say, hey, wait a second, look what we've got. Or let me show you. And they toddle off to some tomb or something, I don't know, a vault, and they come back with records, and it's amazing. I don't know how many times I've had that happen. It's just such a wonderful experience.
And along with that is, because I saw your pictures, is take pictures.
Absolutely.
Take pictures.
Yeah. It was funny because I did, you never would have known. And I was actually talking to a couple on the weekend, and her ancestor had been a fisherman in Orkney, or not in Orkney, well, one in Orkney and one in Fife, actually. And we had gone to the Fisheries Museum, and I was taking pictures, and I'm thinking sort of like, articles that I write, blog posts and stuff, and thinking, oh, that's kind of a cool picture. And there's a picture there, and it was women, and they were filleting the fish, right? So they're gutting the fish and they're slicing them up and putting the fillets in these big creels that they then take. They're big like wicker baskets, like 50-gallon wicker baskets, and then they carry those to the market. And they had bandages wrapped around their fingers. And so I noticed that, and I took a picture, and then I think it was later in that room or the next room, there was a sign that had been in like maybe a doctor's office, or it had been at the community center or somewhere where these women gather, saying that if you arrive on Tuesday at the community hall, there'll be somebody there to bandage your sore hands. Well, I never would have known that they would have had sore hands, nor that there was a whole, that people were there that came in specially to dress those hands, had we not seen that. And her having fishing ancestors on both sides of her family didn't know that till I showed her. So it's just amazing the things you can get when you go to a museum.
Great tips. I would also add to that is find out when, like a courthouse or library or newspaper office, their hours, because it would be horrible if you planned on seeing them on a Friday and they're closed that day.
Right. And sometimes if they know that you're coming a distance and you contact them ahead of time, sometimes depending, I mean, they won't if it's an archive, but if it's a family history society or genealogy society, sometimes they're happy to open for a couple hours and it's just you in there because they know that you're coming for a distance. So
we could be so lucky.
I know. It's happened a number of times. It's been awesome.
I know. I'll say, oh, and I'll only be there from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. So can you open just for those hours? No, I won't lie. But actually, that's when I do my best work. So, but great idea. Great. Well, my tip and trick is, it's over here. And you see these colorful folders. They're for each location. So at any given point, any day, if someone were to say, hey, I'm going to go over to the courthouse, you want to go with me? I can grab my folder. I'm getting ready to go up to the Minnesota History Center to do both my work and client work. So all I have to do is grab this folder, and it already has in it what I need or want to look up in the manuscript and also in the microfilms of public records or newspapers. I'm getting ready to do a research trip to South Dakota and North Dakota. So I have two colors, one for South and one for North. And yeah, I know because I have labels on them. So I don't have to memorize, oh, South is orange and yeah. So in here, I've been placing over the past, 6 months or so, what information I need when I get there. Before I go, of course, I need to call and see the courthouse hours, the newspaper office hours, and the school hours, because I found out that the school is open during the summer. Yay. And so I have that with me, and I'm adding to it. I've got about a month before I go, so that's ready to go. And then based on what I find there, I can either add to my research plan. You guys are great in bringing that up as far as a to-do list or a research plan, but also be open to the idea of adding to that based on what I just saw or found. What's the next thing I can look at while I'm still there? And then for North Dakota, I've got a little bit different things. I want to go out and find the land that they lived. I'm going to do the heritage thing where I go out and walk the land of where they lived and look up all the gentlemen, boys that could have been a father to my mom. Yes, I have a spreadsheet.
Wow.
Of all those last names, because that's what I'm going to also be looking for when I'm looking not only for my direct names, the two names, but who could have been my mom's, who could have fathered my mom. Okay.
Who's your daddy version 2?
Huh?
Who's your daddy version 2?
Who's your daddy? Oh no, I'm not. I'm not gonna do a long drawn out suspense filled blog. We'll leave that to Michael.
So Val, my question for you is this: are you going to be looking at every person in those areas, thinking, "God, you look like me"? Will you spit into this DNA?
DNA.
Oh my gosh, you don't know how bad I would love to do that.
She's probably got color coded DNA tests, Terri.
They all come out. It's a girl.
I got pink, and I got blue. Oh my gosh. Yeah, a little bit self-proclaimed OCD here, but it really helps, to keep track. And then also too, being very specific. My list in this folder for South Dakota example is, yes, I have the newspaper office, but what am I going to look at there? or what am I hoping to find there. So, and then I haven't decided yet, and this is the last tip is, what do you all do? I work better with paper, so I'm going to take my binder with my family group sheets and my research calendar and stuff in there rather than taking my laptop. What do you ladies do? Anyone?
I bring both.
Yeah, I'm a combination of both.
Okay. When you're at the facility, though,
usually my research plan and everything is on my laptop. I put everything in Evernote. Everything's in Evernote. Depending on what I'm finding, if it's a whole bunch of stuff, then I might pull out and start writing because I can write faster than I can type. So I've always got that notebook with me, and a lot of times it's just my notebook too is just to start brainstorming while I'm there. So I'll start thinking, okay, I found this, where should I go from there? And it's easier for me to use paper for that. So it just depends on what I'm doing as to what I'm using my tech for, or my little spiral tech. So,
I use all paper. I very rarely take anything electronic with me. That's just maybe because it's what I've done for 27 years. I just how I do it. I'm much more comfortable with paper that way. And plus, I guess being an archivist, we work a lot more with paper than we do with computers. But I would rather, and I don't really usually get copies of everything unless there's something that they don't allow copy, then I will write it out. But I usually just get copies of everything.
I think a lot
unless it's a book or something,
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with where we're going and what we're going to see.
That's true.
So in Ireland, I had my computer, but I also had everything printed out. Like I had a map of the 1850s of the area my ancestors lived in. And I literally took that to people. Okay, tell me where this is. And they kind of laughed. I'm like, yeah, it's old, but it's what I have. The computer was more for me to go back to at night, input if I had anything to input, or contact you guys out in, the interwebs.
Cyberland.
Yes. So I think it just depends. I think the problem is, batteries die, power goes out, all these things can happen. And if you don't have it in paper, then you're SOL. So in Ireland, I got this small jacket, everything folded up nicely, fit inside it, and I was good.
Well, and like you're talking about, one thing that that concerns me sometimes when I'm doing on-site research is how much I'm carrying. I don't want to leave anything behind. I don't want to have to carry so much that I have to keep up with it. Because a lot of times I'm by myself, and sometimes you have to leave your table to go do research. And I mean, you don't want people with sticky fingers.
Right, exactly.
And so that's the two things. One, I'm old-fashioned, I guess, and the other is just not having to keep up with so much.
Yep. Chris, which do you do? You do a combination of both paper and electronic, or you strictly?
I'm like Terri. I take my electronics, and mostly because I blog every day while I'm away. But the one thing that I cannot survive without is my notebook. I've got a, like a 6x9 spiral notebook, and everything goes in there. So if we're sitting at a talk, then I'm taking notes that the speaker's giving. If I'm at an archive and I need to transcribe something, or it's there. If my, my research plan, my questions are all there. Everything's in my notebook. So, and then, if I have to, I can go and put it, or, if time allows, I can go and put that back into my computer. If not, then I just do it when I get home.
Right.
But yeah, I like the pencil and paper thing. No pens, pencils and paper. Plus the weight of the computer carrying it around, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
She brings that the computer with her because she has to reach out to me while she's there.
That's my phone. Terri, there's a bird.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, though, we laugh about it, being in touch, but I can't tell you how much it means to me and how much I love to see all the pictures that everybody takes when they're at conferences or on trips and stuff.
Yes.
Definitely.
Another thing I was going to say, too, is a lot of times when I'm writing, I will use my phone to scan what I've written and upload it to my like Evernote file for that case that I'm working on. So if something happens and I lose that piece of paper, because I've done that before, it's just gone and you don't know what happened to it. Even in a spiral, I've had things happen, but I've got another copy of it so I can pull it up later. So I can write, scan it, upload it, and I've got 2 copies of it. So
well, one thing, because I have several binders, each of the family names and so forth, and I'm only going to be working on, the one family in South Dakota, and then up when they moved up to North Dakota. But I'm still going to take just one binder with everything in there, even though I have these folders. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to transfer what I have in these folders into the binder or just leave the folders alone. Probably just leave the folders alone because I only want to have to touch it once. You can get to the point where your organization system is taking over you.
This is true. And the cool thing is there are so many different options that we can all find something that works for us, and we don't have to do what everybody else is doing. We can do what works for us and helps us through a process of research. And
right.
I really do think that it's just a matter of finding the system that works for you.
That's why I went to these, and these aren't paper because I was ripping paper. Yes. These are the plastic kinds. So yeah.
And how many of you still take change?
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Photocopiers, lockers, you never know.
Yes, you never know.
Well, and here's one for you. How many of you take your own gloves?
I've not done that.
Nope.
They supply you with gloves, but I sometimes wonder who else has been wearing those gloves.
Oh man, I hadn't thought
that's
of
when you bring a bottle of Purell.
We're all going to think that now.
Exactly.
Ew. Look, we go out in the cemeteries and dig in dirt, and we're worried about putting on a pair of gloves.
No.
Yeah. Which that leads me to bring into one of the tips is a cemetery kit. That's where I have a shovel, like a rake thing, a shears to trim around the grass and overgrowth and clear it all out and stuff when I want to take the pictures of the tombstones. If I decide to, I'll bring rubbing material with me to do a tombstone rubbing, but usually I haven't done that for quite some time because I can get a better picture. But so that kit goes with me as well. But I can't think of any other tips that we haven't talked about. But if anyone has any questions as to specifics on tips and tricks, or if you want to share what you take on a summer research trip or heritage trip, by all means, feel free to comment below or send us a quick email at info@theinDepthGenealogist.com. Terri, I'd like for you to mention more about what IDG has under travel.
We have quite a few different posts and articles in there, especially in our archives for the magazine Going in Depth as well from Dr. Bill. I wrote some travel articles way in the early stages of the In-Depth Genealogist, so those are out there as well. And I'll put the links below and in our blog post as well. Another thing to look at is if you're a Facebook user, there is a group for heritage travel. I believe it's called Heritage Tour for Genealogists or Heritage Travel for Genealogists. That link will be added as well.
Good, good. Well, thank you so much.
Can I just 1 second, Val, take your time? One thing that all right. Get it anyway. The one thing that I also want you to do when you get home after you've done all of this is really sit back and reflect on how it has changed you to connect with your ancestors. Because sometimes it's a really subtle change and sometimes it's an overwhelming change. And you really need to just take time to think that through and to process it.
And maybe even write it up. Would you suggest to write it up, Chris?
Absolutely. Well, I do that anyway. Yeah, like journals,
Yeah.
articles for
Yeah.
people, blogs, whatever. But there's a word in Gaelic, and it's Irish Gaelic and Scottish Gaelic, and it's called duchas, Duchas, and it means connecting with your ancestors and those that came before you. And you really get a huge sense of that once you are anywhere, whether you've gone and you found them in microfilm or you found them in a newspaper, you found their grave. You've learned more about them through visiting a museum. The sense of connection you get will be incredible.
I have 2 other things to add to that since Christine brought that up.
Are you trying to wrap up there, Val?
We've got time.
Fine or quick. If you're going to another country, try to find something to do that puts you, that connects you with your ancestors. So for myself, in Ireland, we went and celebrated Samhain, which is the origins of Halloween. It was very cool. It was also a pagan ritual, so it was very different, but be open to experiencing what your relatives went through. And the other thing is when you're visiting these places, especially when you're going back to the old country and you're sitting at the dock they crossed, like really think about,
Absolutely.
what they were leaving, what was it like, what kind of, just all of that kind of just went through my head as I sat at the dock and knowing that was the last place they touched in Ireland. So it's
that
important.
gives me goosebumps. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it totally did as I sat there and did it. But I also journaled the whole trip too. And I'm not a big journaler, but I knew that we would be seeing and doing and touching so much stuff and so much history, even stuff that wasn't, necessarily my research, like, go to Newgrange. It's older than Stonehenge. Like, touch it.
I know.
Touch it.
I know.
It's
Absolutely.
so old.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. So definitely reflect in your journaling, and I urge you to journal if you're not a journaler when you go and do these things.
It was at a Brock in Orkney last May, and it was the same. It was like 3,500 years old, right? And it's been well preserved because it was under the ground. And it actually took a picture, Terry, of my hand on the stone, reaching out to history. Just an incredible experience.
Totally did the same thing.
Well, that's why I'm going to bring back some North Dakota and South Dakota dirt. Or grass or tumbleweeds. I don't even know. I've never been there. So, I mean, the whole thing is I'm going to be reflecting during each day and in the evening. And I know it's going to be emotional.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, in West Virginia last year, this is funny, but I brought home this little bitty vial. It's coal.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Because I got minors.
Yep.
So I look at it every time we sit here together, and I'm like, but there's just all these little things that really were such a huge part of our ancestors' lives. So,
several years ago, we went to Ohio for my cousin's wedding, and that's the whole point of us going there was for my cousin's wedding. And my father took me and my brother in a car ride to all of his old stomping grounds and where he lived and how far he walked to go see my mother at her house, which was forever. But we went to where my grandfather worked years, and where he worked, he actually died there. And he died there holding open the door for a lady to come into work. And it was the same building, and I have a picture of me holding open that door. And so I thought, this is creepy, but I have to do this.
Wow. Oh no, I would have done the same. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, definitely.
Because it was a grandfather I never met. It was a grandfather I never met. He died when I was 3.
Yeah.
Those experiences stick with you for forever.
Ever. Yep.
Yep. That's why this is, the season, to be out there, to be out in the elements and out on the land, and it's just to cherish every moment, and don't think, oh, I'll be back there to do it later.
You never know.
Because that later may not come.
Right. Absolutely.
No.
So that's why I just thought it was so good of an idea to have this as a chit chat, because we're now in that nice weather, summer season finally. And so I want to thank each of you for joining me and being so giving and sharing of your tips and tricks for on-site or heritage trips. With that, I welcome all your comments. Feel free to comment below. Join us or follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll put those links down below as well. And if you have any suggestions or tips and tricks that you'd like to share with us, by all means, send us a quick email at info@theinDepthGenealogist.com. And with that, I bid you all fond farewell. Please remember to go in depth with all of your ancestors. Bye-bye.
See ya.